Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Vainam namaskritya naram chaivanottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tatojayam Dhira. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Praeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Utama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna. We're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, entitled Questions by King Parikshit. We're on text 28. Yes. And today's February 5th, 2021. Text 28 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 8, Canto 2. Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpe Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate.
Praha Bhagavatam Nama
Praha Bhagavatam Nama
Puranam Brahma Samitam
Puranam Brahma Samitam
Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam
Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam
Brahmakalpa Upagate
Brahmakalpa Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahmakalpa Upagate. Would anyone online like to chant the verse? Going once, twice. Okay, we'll go to the word for word. Praha. He said. Bhagavatam. The science of the personality of Godhead. Nama. Of the name. Puranam. The supplement of the Vedas. Brahma Samitam. Just in pursuance of the Vedas. Brahmane,
Brahmane,
unto Lord Brahma,
unto Lord Brahma,
Bhagavat Proktam,
Bhagavat Proktam,
was spoken by the personality of Godhead,
was spoken by the personality of Godhead,
Brahma Kalpe,
Brahma,
the millennium in which Brahma was first generated,
the millennium in which Brahma was first generated,
Upagate,
Bhagavate,
just in the beginning.
just in the beginning.
Translation. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the personality of Godhead. The impersonalist always tries to misrepresent the personal feature of the Lord, not knowing the science of this great knowledge. And Srimad Bhagavatam is in pursuance of the Vedas and scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. To learn this science, one should take shelter of the representative of Sri Shukadev and follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit without foolishly attempting to interpret, thereby committing a great offense at the feet of the Lord. The dangerous ways of interpretations by the non-devotee class of men have played havoc in understanding the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the careful student should be always alert in this matter if he at all wants to learn the science of Godhead. Om Ganatmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijanat Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 8 Text 28 Praha Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpa Upagate. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature and is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Hare Krishna. Well, just reading through the translation purport, I saw the word science like at least 6 times. So Prabhupada's, yes, it's just yesterday I wrote a rather long response because someone wrote to me and she was saying that she's clearly attracted to the bhakti, and she said like it seems to be truth, but she grew up in a different religion, kind of like swanky bar mitzvah Judaism, the real thing, So she was just worried, like, well, is this a religion? Because I'm not so much into religion, and so I spent some time, and I said, well, personally, I've really never been interested in religion, and I'm still not. And we went on that, Bhagavatam starts, Dharma Pujita Kortvitra Parunimat Saranam Sata, completely rejecting all religion with material motivation. Bhagavatam gets to the essence. This Bhagavatam presents the highest truth, which is reality, distinguished from illusion, for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. It was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva in the maturity of his literary career. And by his hearing Srimad Bhagavatam with a submissive spirit, we realize we realize personality of Godhead in our heart. And so I wrote paragraphs and paragraphs about science, and that's I said, like, that's what really attracted to me. That first of all, there's this vast body of knowledge in Bhagavatam, vast body of knowledge. That's one meaning of science, a vast body of knowledge. Science of chemistry, science of history. And then science means rational, logical hypotheses that you can test, you can have an experience, you can have an experiment. And so I said, whereas I've never been interested in religion in any sort of conventional sense, I have, since the 1970s, I have been interested in like an experiential process through which we can transform consciousness. That's interested me from before I encountered Prabhupada through his books and things like that. That has interested me, and that's a lot of the drive behind the Sofitel programs. Direct transformational process through which we can palpably transform consciousness, not just theoretical. And so I say, like, if we look at, okay, like basic principles. So it's not religion like, well, I was a Buddhist, but now I'm a Christian, but I'm thinking about becoming a Muslim. Next year I might root for the Mets. Okay, right. So it's not like what team are you on? Who do you root for? Right. So it's like, these are universal principles. So I'm saying, but I'm white, I'm black, I'm a woman, I'm a man. But okay, the body changes, and we have some experience. I experience. I am David Wolf. Even there were Dihinos Minuta Dehe Kamaram Yavanam Jaratate Antara Praptu Dirasta Chanamuyate. There was the childhood body, the boyhood body, the young man body. Now we're getting to the kind of the later stages of middle-aged body. Okay, still there's some constant identity. There's some constant identity. So it indicates, okay, so that identity, the body completely changes. The identity is something non-physical. I said, this is just universal. We can go to all the principles. These are universal principles. And so this is knowledge. And then there's a process. Bhagavad Gita gives us a process that we can practice. That's science. You can go into the laboratory. Here it's the laboratory of our heart, the laboratory of our consciousness, a process we can practice to verify or not the assertions of the hypothesis, like that. So Prabhupada uses that term again and again, and that's because Sutta Goswami is using it. And Sutta Goswami, such a striking verse. So Sutta Goswami is describing about, okay, in a sense here, in this particular verse, Sutta Goswami is beginning to introduce the next chapter. Right, we're coming towards the end of chapter 8 of Canto 2, and Sutta Goswami is beginning to introduce the next chapter, chapter 9. And now chapter 9, I mean, all of the 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam are completely transcendental. Chapter 9 of Canto 2 has a special place. And it's just like for a few months now, we're studying chapter 8. So for a few months, we'll study chapter 9, maybe take us to well into the summer at the pace we go. So chapter 9 has a really special place for many reasons. It's this phenomenal chapter. It's a transcendentally phenomenal chapter. Yeah, I just trying to create some suspense and whet your taste. in chapter 9, towards the end, Krishna speaks, Prabhupada calls them the nutshell verses, the seed verses. Just like in chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks the seed 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita. So in chapter 9 of Canto 2 of Bhagavatam, Krishna speaks to Brahma the 4 seed or nutshell verses. So that's those verses, that's really the essence of Bhagavatam. Then the other 17,996 verses expand from that. And these 30 volumes, in a sense, this is complete and partial, right? The Bhagavatam, it's a partial biography of the personality of Godhead. And so I think 30 is, good for this lifetime. But there could be a 300 volume edition. Could be a 3 million volume edition. But for this lifetime, if we can understand a few drops of the 30 volumes, we're good. So, Hare Krishna Parampara Prabhu, welcome. I was just about to talk about you.
Oh.
Yeah, no, you can stay there. No, it was 6 years ago. Parampara organized a course. It was, I think it was our early online days and Skype or something. He organized a course on the 4 seed verses of Bhagavad Gita and the 4 seed verses of Bhagavatam. I remember that was so enthralling. And then so it was a group of us, and we studied text 8 to 11 of chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita and text 33 to 36 of second canto, chapter 9. Okay. Now, before this is just, because Sutta Goswami is beginning to introduce the 9th chapter. So before the seed verses, you got Brahma, lost and bewildered, goes deep into meditation, and he hears tapa. Right? So we're not going to go into that too much, but just it's a really special chapter. And then between hearing those 2 syllables, tapa, heat, austerity, and receiving the seed verses, Brahma, he gets direct experience, direct revelation of the Vaikuntha planets, of the spiritual world, direct realization. When Prabhupada talks about that part of the 9th chapter, you can feel he's like, there's some special ecstasy there. And so, okay, so this is important that, one thing is teachings and the other thing is realization and experience. And so, so there's this well-known verse from the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. It's really a key verse in Bhagavatam. Vedanti tat tatva vidas tatvam yajganamad bayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Learn a transcendentalist, realize the absolute in 3 aspects. Okay, the Brahman, the oneness of energies, and I think everyone here should be familiar with this now, and Paramatma, Lord in the heart, and then Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Bhagavan is like the ultimate. The personality of Godhead is the ultimate in the absolute. So we can look at different verses here, so there can be different arguments. But if we look at the speakers, if we look at the compiler of the Vedas himself, who's that? His name is Srila Vyasadeva. The speaker here, Sutta Goswami, Shukadev Goswami, Lord Brahma, Arjuna, apart from their teachings, their experience of the absolute is the personality of Godhead, their experience of the source of all energies. So we're going to really hear about Brahma there. And of course, Brahma, here's the 4 seed verses. Brahma has his famous prayers 27 verses, all culminating in Govinda Madi Pujam Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor. Vinum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalaya Daksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Kopi Kamaniya Visheshishobham Govinda Madi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is adept at playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals and head bedecked with peacock feather, whose figure of beauty is tinged with the hue of dark blue rain clouds, and whose unique loveliness is charming millions of cupids. Okay. So it's just realizations on and on, full of color, full of form, full of personality. This is the realization of Brahma, the engineer of the universe, the first Brahmin. That's what I mean. Brahma, he's the first Brahmin. I mean, he has some he has some passionate service, but he's the first Brahmin. This is the realization of Brahma, full of color, and he describes, when he describes the substratum of all existence, he describes it's a place. It says like it's a place where there's no differentiation and there's just one white light. No, he says it's a place where every step, every word is a song and every step is a dance. Okay, the water is like nectar and there's form and there's like that. Okay, so that's the substratum of all existence: personalism, person, and the compiler, and so the 9th chapter really establishes that. With Brahma's realizations. Shukadev Goswami, who's speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. It's just the verse about it, also a very, very famous verse from Bhagavatam, from the 7th chapter of the first canto. Atmaramas Chamunayo Nirgunti Apyukrami. Kravanta Hetu Kim Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Kuno Hari. It's called the Atmarama verse. That Shukadev Goswami is completely self-satisfied, and he had Brahman realization of the non-personal, energetic aspect of the Absolute. And we discussed yesterday, Anandini gave class, and we discussed when Shukadev Goswami was finally convinced by Krishna to come out of the womb after 16 years. Poor mom. Okay, when he was finally convinced to come out, and then he went away. He went away. He didn't stay at home to like associate with dad. And what a dad he had, Vyasadeva. But he went away. But there in the forest, he heard some sages chanting Bhagavatam, and he was attracted. And then at some point, he did hear from dad the entire Bhagavatam. He did hear it from dad. So the point is that he had no material desire. He wasn't interested in sex, wasn't interested in money and compliments and popularity. No interest in that. And then from that platform of having no interest in that, he's attracted to hear about Krishna dancing with the gopis. So that's a proof that that's not mundane. It's not mundane. Krishna and the cowherd boys, Krishna and Mother Yashoda. It's not ordinary male, female, or ordinary friend. It's not ordinary violence. Krishna and the demons. Shukadev Goswami is attracted to that. So again, kind of like that, it's the realizations of these personalities are clear that Sri Krishna is the goal of all the Vedas. Vedeshtashavarahama Vevedyo Vedantikrit Vedavid Eva Chaham. And so chapter 9, special amongst the special in so many ways. And as emphasized here, so Sutta Goswami is describing Bhagavatam as the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. So it's supplementary and it's primary. Okay? So we could think, okay, it's more important than the Atharva Veda. Okay, yeah, go try to find some translation of the Rig Veda, Atharva Veda. Read it. I'm not saying don't. I mean, it's, higher than most all the literature. But then try to figure it out. Try to figure out what to do. How, okay, and it's probably good reading, but practically speaking, first of all, the vast majority of the Vedas from the Vedic age, they've not come down. Even if you read the literature of even in the time of the six Goswamis 500 years ago, the vast majority of Vedas, more than 90%, hadn't come down then. And then the Goswamis and Prabhupada, they say, and even what does come down from the core Vedas, it's in kind of like intensely complex sutras, kind of like, we're not going to understand it. You could say, well, the Goswamis wouldn't understand it, but I probably got something on them, and okay. So no, it's like, even, so it hasn't come to, so Srila Vyasadeva, it's ascribed, Anarto Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranihite Male Pashat Purusham Purnam Mayam Chayad Ahitukam. Srila Vyasadeva wrote all those Vedas, okay, all the Vedas, Upanishads and like that. He wrote all the Vedas, and he was not satisfied because he had compassion in his heart. He knew, like, people in this current yuga, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. So as a result, he wrote this Bhagavatam, which is there to explain the essence of the Vedas. And it's described, Anarto Pashamam Sakshat Bhakti Yogam Adhokshaje Lokasya Janata Divam Chakre Satvata Samhitam. So Vyasadeva saw it's called a trance of Bhakti, Bhakti Yogena Manasi. Vyasadeva saw in his trance of Bhakti that living entities, especially in this yuga, he's motivated through compassion for people like us, sees that we're experiencing so much anxiety because of misidentification of the eternal, timeless spirit soul with the material temporary body. And so we've got all these anarta, rough translation, grungy. Rough, I mean, if you look in the Sanskrit dictionary, you'll see grungy. Okay, rough translation means unwanted thing. Just like we say, there's healthy emotion and there's grungy, toxic emotion. So similarly, anarta means that which is unwanted. That which is not natural for the pure soul, for our heart of hearts. And so Vyasadeva, we've got so many anartas, false conceptions, and just greed, lust, and also, the more we're addicted to material lusty pleasures, the more we're entrapped by material miseries. Thank you. And and Vyasadeva saw the solution is Bhakti Yoga. That's the solution. And Vyasadeva saw, Lokasya Janata Vigdams, and people won't get it. They're just not going to get it. They can read all the Vedas I wrote, all those wonderful books. They can read the Atharva Veda, and they're not going to get it. They're going to miss it. So as a result, Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam. He gave us, wrote, but it's not like let's say Vyasadeva revealed the eternal Bhagavatam. That's more, because it's not like an author writes a novel or a history book today. He revealed the Bhagavatam. This is transcendental literature that was not published at a certain date. Of course, it takes a particular form at a certain date. So that's why Prabhupada's giving us Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are the supplements of the Vedas that are especially important for us. These are the supplements of the Vedas that are especially important for us. It's described, Sarvas Veda Itihasanam Saram Sarvam Samudrita. Bhagavatam is the cream of the Vedic literatures. Nigama Kapadura Galitambalam Sukhamukharamrita Dravya Sabya Samyutam. Pipata Bhagavatam Rasam Malayam Mohora Horasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. That this Bhagavad, it's the ripened fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures, and it emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even tastier, although it's relishable. Juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls like Shukadeva Goswami. So that's why Prabhupada knows what he's doing. Like and Prabhupada talks about that if his manifest presence was another 10 years, Prabhupada wanted to give us the Vedanta Sutra, he wanted to give us the Ramayana. So it's all wonderful. And he focused on giving us the essence, Bhagavatam, which includes Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada gave us the Ishopanishad. So Prabhupada is empowered by Vyasadeva, and Prabhupada, makes that point that, without foolishly attempting to interpret, thereby committing a great offense at the feet of the Lord, the dangerous ways of interpretations by the non-devotee class of men. So it was maybe 3 months ago, Ganashyam Prabhu gave a class here in this Sangha, and he gave the analogy Prabhupada often gives, like milk touched by the lips of a serpent. Milk is pure. At the same time, if we drink milk that was touched by the lips of a serpent with the venom of a serpent, then the effect is toxic. The effect is toxic. So that's why it's like important. Just like it's important if we want to really learn and master any science, that we hear from authorized teachers, and we don't need to be in mystery and bewilderment about who's an authorized teacher. That's why Prabhupada, he's giving us the conclusions of Krishna, of Arjuna, of Suta Goswami, of Brahma, Maharaj Parikshit, so that if we're going to study Bhagavad Gita, let's study it in the spirit of Arjuna. There's no mystery. There's no puzzle. What's the spirit of Arjuna? Bhaktosimi skachati rasyami tarutamam. Krishna says, Arjuna, you're able to understand Bhagavad Gita because you're my devotee, you're Krishna's devotee, and Krishna's friend. Right? So we want to hear Bhagavad Gita from someone who's a friend of Krishna and someone who's a devotee of Krishna. We want to hear Bhagavatam, which again, this is the cream of the cream of the Vedas. This is the distilled essence of the Vedas. All right? So all the Vedas, pretty much, they're compiled by Vyasadeva. Right? So what's Vyasadev's realization? He's in a trance of bhakti to Krishna when he's giving us Bhagavatam, the cream of the Vedas. So we want to hear Bhagavatam in the line of someone who's in the line of Vyasadeva, in the line of Arjuna, that spirit. And then as a result, then we grow in transcendental knowledge, in actual, in science. Scientific means prajaksha vagamam dharmyam shushukam kartumavyam, means directly experience. We directly experience the truth of ourself. We directly experience realization of what is matter, what is spirit, what is karma, what are the aspects of God, what's my relationship with God. Real knowledge, not just data or information, real knowledge that truly satisfies all the drives, Like we have a drive for knowledge, right? That's just inescapable. We're gonna look, where is eating? Where is sleeping? Who won the playoffs? What's the stock market doing? Right? This is the soul's drive for information, right? But that's it. So it's like, we tend to direct it in ways that aren't really deeply satisfying. But the soul's drive for eternity, right? We're all looking through like, oh, what insurance should I get? We're looking to be eternal. That's natural because the soul is eternal. We're looking to be happy and blissful. And so we're convinced if I just work that job, another 10 years, I'll be happy. We're convinced if I just eat this or whatever. So So this is realized knowledge that satisfies the innermost drives of the spirit soul. Um, okay. So I'll read the verse again. Text 28, chapter 8, Canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Praha Bhagavatam Nama Purnam Brahma Samitam Brahmane Bhagavat Proktam Brahma Kalpa Upagate. He began to reply to the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit by saying that the science of the personality of Godhead was spoken first by the Lord himself to Brahma when he was first born. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature, and it is just in pursuance of the Vedas. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your presence and association. I welcome at this time any comments or questions. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
I appreciate your point about Sukadeva Goswami. Like, it's such a highlighted verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Bhagavatam.
Atmarama verse, yeah.
And in the past, many years ago, I was always wondering why.
Okay.
What does that mean and why it is presented the way it's presented?
Yeah.
And that someone can be completely in bliss of Brahman.
Yeah. Right.
Like, because there is bliss there.
Right.
There is bliss, there is like no pain, no anchoring, no lamenting.
Nice.
Like complete freedom.
Yeah.
Like, bliss there. And most of us, that's really what we aspire for.
Relief.
We want that perfection of bliss and no anchoring, no lamenting, no desire, and like that.
Yeah.
And to understand very clearly that this is just the beginning. It's not even the end. It's just like very, very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And that from that platform, we can be attracted by something that's even more attractive than the bliss of Brahman.
Yeah.
And then looking at, okay, from where I am at, then if I want, I can skip. Like, it's relishable for those who are already in bliss. So what to speak about those who are not in bliss?
Yeah.
Those who are really lamenting and anchoring and suffering and being tossed by the material energy, how much like attractive it must be, and like all that's available there.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Melanie. Yeah. This Atmarama verse, it's the 10th verse of the 7th chapter of the first canto. There's and there's more than an entire chapter on it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So you were wondering over years and decades, well, okay, it's a wonderful verse, but why is it so? And now you're sharing your realizations. And it's so important because like in the impersonalist approaches, the idea of like Krishna's pastimes, okay, well, this is this is just like fairy tales, or maybe it can help you to get to that.
It means to a goal.
It means to a goal, but then you realize that beyond Krishna's form and pastimes, there's no. And so Shukadeva Goswami, the four Kumaras, these are examples where they had achieved that bliss of impersonal Brahman, and they're attracted to Krishna's pastime, which shows there's nothing material. The Mayavadis will say, Krishna's pastimes and form, it's Maya. It might be more mode of goodness, but it's still Maya like that. But no, there's no Maya there. Right. And so these great souls who have no attraction to anything material, gross or subtle, they're attracted to Krishna and the cowherd boys, and Krishna killing Kamsa, and Krishna fighting on the battlefield, Krishna dancing with the gopis. So it's like there's something, Prabhupada uses the word thousands and thousands. They're transcendental.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not our conception of romance or adventure. They're transcendental, and to absorb ourselves in that not that I'm there, but to absorb ourselves, it's greater than the yogis who are meditating in the Himalayas for thousands of years.
It's perfection.
It's a perfection.
Yeah, on Friday we do a Krishna book reading with our Vaishnavi school, and I'm really like relishing us being together reading those pastimes, and from that platform of knowing that it is absolute.
It's absolute,
and it's all like, if we do understand, if we do agree, if we don't agree, if it's far out, if it's weird, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We are hearing it, we are reading them, and that's completely the perfection of life.
Yeah. I experience you as joyful and blissful, and tell you that, like, I hear your trust, your experience, your confidence, that just exposure to this vibration, whatever our mind's doing, whatever our conditioning's saying, this is absolutely good. This is absolutely transformation. There's in this discussion, I'm reminded of one of the verses in Brahma Samhita. So Brahma, he talks about the jnanis who are going for relief from material misery through impersonal realization. He talks about the yogis going for mystic powers by meditating on super soul in the heart. Brahma says, Pantastakoti satavatsara sampragamyo vayurtapi manasa muni pangavanam. So pyastiyat prapadasimya vichintyatatve govindamadi pusham tamaham bhajami. Bhaktisiddhanta translates it in beautifully sophisticated poetry, English, which I don't have exactly, but it essentially, Brahma is saying that those yogis, those jnanis, they can travel at the speed of mind and do their meditative practices for millions and millions of years and lifetimes. And if they're sincere, they'll come to realize maybe a few rays from the toenails of Krishna. Meaning, if they're successful, then they can come to Krishna's lotus feet and begin to enter into the Vrindavan pastimes. So this is key, because like you're just not, well, it's not like I've experienced of all the places, but we can feel very fortunate that we have a representative in Srila Prabhupada of this, because as far as I know, you're not gonna get these conclusions at any yoga center or at any of the other books in the library outside of what we hear from Srila Prabhupada. And he's not making anything up. He's representing the Vedas. He's representing Vyasadeva, Shukadeva Goswami. We can feel very fortunate that we have access to that. And then, of course, it's our choice how much we want to embrace it. Mm-hmm. Right. So I feel, I feel just 100% completely satisfied with this source of wisdom and knowledge. Mm. I'm not real satisfied with how much I'm following it. That's a whole nother discussion, but that's joyful. The source of knowledge, completely satisfying, completely authentic, completely potent and transformational. And because if we don't have that, then we can try this and that. But it's just like, if we want to get somewhere, we want to get to Orlando or Atlanta or the Hippodrome in Gainesville, and we have directions, and 60% of those directions are accurate. That really is not helpful. No. Like it gives you 4 left turns, 3 right turns, and then 2 go. 60% of them are accurate. Well, okay, I was trying for Gainesville and I'm in Alabama. And that's the thing. Like, we really need a source of authentic, bona fide parampara wisdom to get somewhere. And then again, it's our choice how much we want to go on the path, how much. My experience myself is like really happy, joyful, grateful for the path, and I I spend maybe 99.99% of my energies wandering here and there in the forest. Happy to know the path is there, but maybe tomorrow I'll go on the path and crawl a few steps. But just knowing that the path is there and it's the real thing, that's wonderful. Hare Krishna.
I have a question. I have a technical thing.
Okay.
I was hesitant to.
Just if you can speak loud enough for
All right.
others to hear.
So I have this propensity,
Yeah.
I guess I'd say. So in this verse also, and then in general, so, Srila Prabhupada's purport, I don't have much doubt or, I accepting purport and it makes sense and everything like that. And I'm accepting that. But then when I see something in the translation, like Srimad Bhagavatam is the supplementary Vedic literature and is just in pursuance of the Vedas.
Yeah.
And then I have some kind of doubt about that or have a question about that. And then I'll go into the word to
word for word, yeah.
And so then I'll see, so I say, so supplement of the Vedas, that's Purana.
Uh-huh.
So I get that because it's like the Puranas, it's like a Purana. So
Yeah.
I kind of understand what
Purana, yeah,
the role of the Puranas are.
sure.
And then so just in pursuance of the Vedas, that's the Sanskrit for that is Brahma Samhitam.
Uh-huh.
And then so I'm kind of like, well, what is, does that really, so then I'm doubting that translation.
Okay.
How does that translate to that? And how does Prabhupada get that from that word? So I'm just wondering about this verse, if you have anything specifically about that Brahma Samhitam. And then I'm looking for feedback in general about that kind of propensity to kind of go into the word for word and kind of questioning and, doubting, Prabhupada's translation or.
Yeah. There's a few examples, maybe a pretty high percentage of examples of some who, they came to Vedas, Bhakti Yoga through Prabhupada, of course, and then they became Sanskrit scholars, and then they left and became really confused. And in some cases, and maybe comic laughable, but in some cases, kind of really dark, tragic ways. Okay. Yeah, so the only thing I know about Sanskrit is what I, read from Prabhupada, and so I don't know Sanskrit. Other than I know, many words because I've been studying Prabhupada's books for 40 years. So, but I've never studied Sanskrit language, and I feel good about that. It's helpful for me. So, okay, so Prabhupada, first of all, like when there's a few things. I don't know what is first of all, but when he's giving us the purports, like the Bhagavatam, he has the commentaries. This is apart from his pure devotional realization, talking to Krishna personally. Right? There's the you probably heard this interaction where it was at an airport. Prabhupada was being interviewed by reporters, and they asked Prabhupada, so how do you know which of your students to place in this service, in this position, in this role? And Prabhupada said, Krishna tells me. And then one of his students, it was Rameshwar Swami, who I don't think he would mind this. And then he said, oh yeah, well, what Prabhupada means is that through the intelligence, God works. And then Prabhupada said, no, Krishna tells me. And there was, no arrogance, just as it is. So kind of like, okay, and everyone got it. So apart from that, Prabhupada, so he's got the bhakti, and then there's the Vedanta, and so he's got all the commentaries of the acharyas. We went through this in some recent correspondence or something. 7 or 8 major commentaries, another 3 or 4 that are maybe not so major, Virara Gavacharya and Jiva Goswami, the whole Jiva Goswami Sundarbis. It's basically a commentary on the Bhagavatam. Sridhar Swami, the main commentator. So Prabhupada's got all those, and he's bringing all of that. He's bringing all of that, and as well as his personal realization. And it's all his personal realization. And then he's bringing like, okay, here's the essence. So Prabhupada, so there's that Sanskrit verse, right? Then Prabhupada's using the word for word, the translation and the purport to communicate to us the essence and the impact and the meaning of the verse. And sometimes he'll use the word for word in one way and the translation to give a different perspective, and then the purport to give a different perspective. So that what I just said is a perspective that's very helpful for me. That's very helpful for me. And then as far as the specifics you just asked about, I'll just at the risk of being roadblocky, there's just no reason to, like from any point of view, to doubt that, because like the Bhagavatam in pursuance of the Vedas, we could, as supplementary to the Vedas, yeah. So that's spoken by Sutta Goswami and Shukadev Goswami. We could find hundreds of clear references that that's what the Bhagavatam is. That's what the Bhagavatam is. So yeah. So so Prabhupada's, so like he not just knows this verse, and he's consulting all the great scholar devotees over the millennium. He knows the chapter, and he knows the he knows the canto, and he knows the context. And so he's bringing all that in when he's given his translations and purports.
Is that translation of Brahmasamitam?
What's that?
The translation of Brahmasamitam. What's the translation?
In this it says just in pursuance of the Vedas, in this word for word.
Yeah, I mean, like there's
the book, the Brahmasamitam.
Who translated Brahmasamhita?
No, what's the translation of the words?
Oh,
To that book?
Brahmasamhita, like the Song of Brahma. That's my understanding. A Samhita is like a song.
So any Veda is a song of Brahma.
Yeah.
Because he is the firstborn who received all the Veda.
Yeah.
And so any Veda, including the Purana, including Bhagavatam, is a song of Brahma.
Yeah. Right, and thanks for that. Yeah, song of Brahma, and yesterday we heard about Brahma Rat means protected by Krishna. So maybe here Brahma refers to Song of Krishna, right? In yesterday's verse, Brahma Rata meant protected by Krishna. So Samitam is song. Yes.
So I'm imagining, it can be, if I have a question or to go into the word to word, it can be helpful to like learn some words, learn some Sanskrit words and things like that. But to go, there's a risk of going too deep into that and then like researching Sanskrit dictionaries and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's potentially could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I had a client, and it was a devotee client, and the word for word was creating so much doubt for me. so much doubt. And because some of the word for word, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, almost will confirm the impersonal aspect of Krishna, that Krishna doesn't have a personal aspect.
That's what happened for me.
Yeah.
That's what Sri Upanishad also. That's what in my experience. Sri Upanishad.
Sri Upanishad is really personal anyway.
Yeah.
It's geared for like impersonal understanding that lead little by little to Krishna.
Yeah.
And the Bhagavad Gita, so the word for word, like without the guidance of a pure devotee of Krishna, anywhere we bite in a Veda, we can misunderstand it. So that's what's happened. Yeah. So if we bite alone, and when we do the word for word, it's like I'm biting alone in the Veda without understanding that the source of the Veda and the purport of the Veda is Krishna, then we are going to be so misled. So misled, because we will interpret in a way that fits our agenda for interpretation. And often it's impersonal. interpretation is the one that people are looking the most for, because it looks like freedom from miseries. And everybody wants freedom from miseries.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into Sanskrit word for word, and then, as you said, there's risk. But Prabhupada gave us a Sanskrit. It wasn't. That's like if we're in a spirit of discovery. Oh, I wonder what Prabhupada means by that.
Yeah.
And if we're in a spirit of fault finding, it's risky. You mentioned Ishopanishad, so that's the one. Sometimes Bhagavad Gita is called Gitopanishad. The one conventional Upanishad that Prabhupada gave us is the Ishopanishad. There's a verse there kind of conveying the essence of this. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pitam mukam tatvam pushana pavrinu satya dharmayana drishtaye. You got the Vedas personified, speaking to the Lord and saying, please remove your glaring effulgence. Please remove the glaring effulgence of the white light Brahmagyoti so that we can see your beautiful smiling face. Meaning that, sure, the Vedas talk a lot about the oneness and all that. But ultimately, the Vedas, it's all about Krishna in a personal way.
Hare Krishna. Can I also say something to the Sanskrit?
Yes, Ladini Shakti.
I think, like, if you look in Sanskrit dictionary for practically any of the word, then you will find like 100 like options how to translate it. So I think for someone who like doesn't study Sanskrit like thoroughly for the whole life, it's impossible to translate. Like there is so many combination on each verse, how to combine the words together. And I think Srila Prabhupada was like really appreciated by the Sanskrit scholars of that time for his Sanskrit, how he was like really amazingly capable to translate this, which is like quite untranslatable for someone who doesn't understand the context.
Thanks for that, Ladini Shakti. That's a wonderful, very important point. Yeah, like the word Atma, it has like a dozen meanings at least. That's why like that one verse, Atma Ramastramunayo, Lord Chaitanya gave like 64 different meanings to it. And of course, because
Yes.
Chaitanya, they all culminated in Krishna. Jiva Goswami, he's famous. He wrote so many books, but he compiled a Sanskrit grammar book, and for all the examples, he Krishna Lila to teach grammar. So that's an excellent point, Ladini Shakti. Thanks for sharing that.
Hare Krishna. And I also want to share that I really appreciated your and Malini's point about like how Shukadev Goswami, who is liberated soul, wants Krishna. Like that's something I meditate on often. Like there must be something like really great about Krishna consciousness and service to Krishna when these people that they have everything that I want and then they want that. So like for me, it like really helps as a proof that like this is something to like desire for. And one point I will make to that connection is like, so we don't have sunlight now because it's winter. So not only we don't have daylight, but we also don't have sun because it's foggy and cloudy and snowy and rainy, all that for 3 months. And it like helps me meditate on Krishna so much because like Krishna is like so radiant and effulgent, and it's like, okay, I can imagine the sun really in my mind, but it like takes me to think about Krishna too. So I wanted to share that.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai, Hare Krishna.